Before we get into this, huge spoiler warning. If you're not caught up with The Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 3, you might want to leave now and come back when you're caught up. Now, let's talk, is Glenn alive? The good, the bad, and the ugly. Alright, Deadheads, I wasn't going to make this video. I was going to put this in the afterthoughts video, but something I read, an interview with Greg Nicotero, was like, make the damn video. Now, I will let you guys know, before I read the interview with Greg, I was about 80% sure that Glenn is alive. Now, before we get into this, I don't know why it's such a problem believing a character like this is alive or being convinced that they're messing with us, because they filmed it on purpose like this. They filmed it ambiguous. It was not like Beth getting shot in the head. Like, Beth was shot in the head. That was clear as day. As soon as the back of her head exploded, I was like, yeah, she's gone. With Glenn, it's different. Now, I will get into this. I'm going to have two different ratings for the Glenn death scene, depending on whether or not he lives or dies, and I'll explain why. If he dies, that will hurt the episode rating-wise, in my opinion, because his death scene was filmed shitty. For his death, it was shitty. And I'm not talking about it wasn't dramatic, it was a cool death. All they should have done is, if he was actually dead 100%, no way out of this, he should have fell into the pit, everything the same, except for pan out a little bit more and actually see him. And don't tell me that wide shot all the way up here is definitely Glenn getting ripped apart, because I watched it 10 times and it's not clear. You might look at it and be like, well, it has to be clear because he's wiggling around and there's blood and everything. But I'm talking about, like, this is his body. You see it and it's being torn into. I'm not talking about how you see, you know, his shoulders and the top of his chest, and then down here somewhere there's shit coming out and it's off screen, you know, they pull his guts out and it's on screen. I'm not talking about ambiguous camera angles like that, you know, awkward camera angles. I'm talking about official, you can see everything and he's dead. If that was the case, I'd be fine. This scene and the episode would get a high rating. If he is dead and they filmed it like this, it's going to have a very poor rating, because they could have done some really awesome shit if he was dead. Now, let's skip to him not being dead. Two things. One, the fans that think they're only going to bring him back because fans are upset. I don't know if some of you guys think they actually filmed this shit, you know, the week before it airs, but that's not the case. They filmed this months and months and months ago. When they bring him back, it's on purpose. All that shit is on purpose. So stop saying like, oh, the fans being mad is what brought him back. It's just the same with the people who said that Beth in the flashback was only because fans were pissed. No, they filmed that shit before you guys got pissed, so how does that make any sense? They were going to do it anyway. Same thing with Glenn. When they bring him back, that's how it was supposed to be. Now, the fans that get pissed saying, oh, this is only a trick for the ratings. First off, who gives a shit? If this is a show you love, do you really care that they did a little sneaky, clever trick to get us riled up, mess with our emotions, and get us going crazy, get us to, you know, feel alive momentarily, as alive as you can feel through a frickin' TV show? I mean, there's people crying, there's people pissed, there's people freaking out. Internet went crazy. People who barely make review videos that have, like, you know, 100 subscribers are getting 20, 30, 40, 50,000 views. The internet went nuts. Fans went fucking crazy. You're telling me if they did that shit and got our blood pumping and the community just crazy, they had us going, that's a bad thing all of a sudden? You know, they don't do it every episode. I don't know why that's bad. You know, if you love this show and you want it to do good and you want it to have great ratings, why would you knock it for pulling a clever stunt like this? And here's where I say for my ratings, if this is a stunt, and if Glenn doesn't die here, it was friggin' awesome. The angles, the way they did it, how clever it was, and how much choreography they needed. Yeah, they van dropped the falling off the dumpster. They van dropped that a little bit, because at that angle I watched it a few times, and there's just no way they're going to fall down and have his head close to the end of the dumpster. But I appreciate what they were going for there, so it's not a big deal. Now, I want to interject and put this in right here. Even though if he died, the way they filmed it, I absolutely hated it. And if he lived the way they filmed it, I loved it because of how clever it was, how sneaky it was, and how much they got us. Like, they fooled the shit out of us. But I need to put this in here really big and really clear. This does not mean I hate it because he died. I loved it because he's alive. As soon as they bring him back, they could have a wolf slit his throat and, carve a W in his head and have him blend in with the herd through No Way Out, and then Maggie sees him and shoots him. They could do that, and I would be fine with it. That would actually be pretty cool if they did do that with somebody. Make it a red shirt, but still, that would be pretty neat. Anyway, I'm not talking about we need to bring Glenn back just because it's Glenn, and I like Glenn. He's cool. I'm talking the way they filmed it. That's why I didn't like it. Not because a main character died. It's the way they filmed it. And that is why I would love it when they do bring him back. I'll be like, okay, that was filmed perfectly. Now, what is making me believe, and you guys will think this is stupid, but what's making me believe 100% Glenn is, definitely alive? Greg Nicotero did an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, I believe. I don't believe Greg Nicotero meant to reveal anything. For me, it was pretty revealing. And yes, you could say I'm reaching or I'm pulling this out of my ass. That's perfectly fine. But Greg Nicotero told the guy, he said, well, bad things happen, and sometimes it's just realism, like people die, whoop-de-whoop. Then he goes on to say about the scene and how difficult it was shooting it because they needed specific angles. He got lost in the moment, it felt like, when I was reading it. And he started talking about how Gimple called him up months before and said, hey, I have a really good idea for this scene, but we need to, damn, I wish I had it in front of me. My phone's dead, but we need to film it or write it or get it down a certain way or the scene won't work. Now, for me, a death, that doesn't fit a death. You can have a death. And mind you, Greg Nicotero isn't talking about some phantom scene. He's talking about Glenn's death scene. Anyway, so with the way Greg Nicotero talked about the scene is they had to get it just right. I will leave a link to the article there. Now, keep in mind, it isn't really revealing, but if you look at how they film scenes, if you do any reading or if you know a little bit or maybe you watch a lot of behind-the-scenes features and read his article, it is just glaring that they're talking about doing something specific to get the fans riled up, and it doesn't make any sense if it was just a regular death. It doesn't make sense at all. Glenn dying in the story at this time, none of it makes any sense. Now, if you're saying, oh, it's realism, people just die, well, yeah, that's true, that does happen, but there's just something about this that it just doesn't even make any sense. And yes, I do know the callbacks between, Glenn saying dumbass in the walkie-talkie, which is the first words he said to Rick, and then he said dumbass in season 6, and those were his last words. But also you have to know he did say that when Rick was in a tank, and then Glenn did say that before he was in a dumpster, both in the tank and in the dumpster, or by the dumpster, surrounded by zombies. So they could take this either way. I just want to put this out there. Take it easy on your fellow fans. Just because I personally believe Glenn is definitely alive, and other fans might believe it, it doesn't make them idiots. You know what I mean? Take it easy out there. You might disagree. That is absolutely fine. If you disagree, just say why. That's absolutely fine. But I see so many times in the fandom where you get someone who believes one thing, another person who believes another thing, and they go at it. Now, and no offense to the people who were on Beth's side, I was rooting for her too back at the time in my review, but I think the stalking, the harassing, on social media, calling writers idiots and cursing them out because your character died, I think that's bullshit, and you need to seek mental help. That is totally different than me sitting here thinking Glenn is alive. I don't attack the writers for it, I don't message them and curse them out. It's completely different. So take it easy on other fans. It ain't that serious, you know what I mean? We're all in this because of a show we love. So, put your thoughts, with that said, put your thoughts, opinions, and predictions for Glenn. Is he still alive? Is he dead? Are you sick of hearing about it already? And what do you think of him getting his throat slit and then a W carved in his head and ending up in the horde of walkers and breaking into Alexandria? Thoughts and opinions in the comment box. I'm done talking. It's your turn.
Subscribe now.